correct, everybody. This is, today marks 27 days before we start the 2016 season and the first day for Louisiana Tech for our fall camp. So an exciting day right now. I would like to compliment really this football team, Kurt Hester and his staff, for the job that they've done with this team for the last really 4 months. When you look at from the time we broke spring practice in the middle of April and what they've done for the end of April, May, June, July, I think Kurt and his staff have worked extremely hard. I think this team has worked extremely hard, and looking by the numbers, we've had 100% to this point already passed the conditioning test. Looking at the numbers with what guys have done with their weights, with their physical weights, with their bench press, the gains that they've made in the weight room has been encouraging. We always talk about in order to get done what we want to get done, we need to add some players, but we also need to develop the players we've had. And I think this summer has gone a long way in that. So I definitely like to compliment them and the players on the academic success that we've had in the spring semester, the summer, with a lot of the things that are going on right now. I'm really excited about the growth and the progress that we're making in the weight room with our bodies and what we're doing on the football field right now. We've got a number of new players with reporting date being today. I believe there are 99 players that reported today. With that, I believe there's 10 that were not here. I believe there were 10 that were not here. No, there are 13 that were not here for spring practice. And I believe 10 that were not here for session 1. So we've got a lot of new faces that are going to be joining the program. 89 guys are back. And like I said, with the addition of 10 more, some of the additions, Dalton Santos, Joshua Outlaw, and Dwight Stallworth were all here for summer school. But then for summer session 1, and whether these guys were added in summer session 2 or today being their first day, but Jordan Harris, Prince Sam, both were here summer session 2. New players include Drew Edgar from Jones Junior College, Wyatt Santos from Tyler Junior College, Adrian Hardy, a freshman from Houston, J.R. Belton, a freshman from West Monroe, D. Fleming from Natchez, Mississippi, C.J. Powell from Livonia, Jake Norris from West Monroe, and Travis Gary from Coushatta, Louisiana. Are all the new additions that reported that will be with us as we get into fall camp, getting on the grass tomorrow. Not very often that I've been able to say we have 100% retention. Normally when I talk about the additions, I talk about maybe some of the deletions, transfers, guys that didn't make it academically, any of those type of things. Happy to announce this year we have had 0 deletions from the spring roster, with everybody academically eligible and everybody coming back for this fall. There are 3 guys that you will not see their names on the list. Marlon Watts, Davon Washington, and Drew Melanson have all had surgeries here in the last couple weeks that are in rehab right now, and so they are not in the camp numbers right now, so you won't see their names, but they all should rehab and should be able to be available once we start to get into the season. They should all be able to be here with us. We have a lot of things that we got to get done in the next 3 weeks, the next 27 days. We've got an awful lot of things that we have to get done. There are 4 main goals that we're trying to get done with this camp. We call this phase 4 for our football team. One is we've got to put this team together. Much like the last couple years, there's a number of transfer students that are on this roster that we are expecting some immediate help with. We've brought in a number of seniors, I believe 3 seniors that are transfers that we're going to be looking for not only to play, but also to play a leadership role for our football team. So that, along with the freshman class, that I think there's 5 or 6 in the freshman class that have a chance to contribute, the first thing we've got to do is put this team together and really start to identify the leadership. I think that's going to be one of the most important things. Obviously, we got to establish our depth charts and where everybody's going to fit as we start to put this thing together for the season. We've got to develop our special teams players, who is going to be our dirty dozen guys this year, those guys that are going to cover kickoffs, punts, punt return, and kickoff return. And obviously, we've got to teach and polish up what we're doing as an offensive and defensive football team. So those are the main 4 things that we're trying to get done as we get into camp and start to get on the grass tomorrow. The schedule for this football team, we have obviously reporting day today. A lot of administrative meetings, a lot of things to get done. Probably took them 2 hours to register today or to check in because of all the different stations they had to make sure that they hit. But we will do today, we will have an administrative meeting tonight, getting many of the NCAA things and medical things out of the way. Then we will have the conditioning test for those that have not taken it tomorrow morning at 6:30 a.m. And then we will practice Monday through Friday. These 5 practices, one a day, will be open to the media, or they will be open to anybody, media, or the general public that would like to come out and see a little bit of what this football team is going to be. Those practices, we will practice Monday and Tuesday in shorts, Wednesday and Thursday in shells, and Friday will be our first day in pads. All 5 of those days will be open to the public. And then Saturday will be our first 2-a-day, 1 of 5 2-a-days. That we have on our schedule, and Saturday will also be our first mini scrimmage. We will have a mini scrimmage to start to make some decisions on the freshmen and who are going to be able to play this year and who are going to maybe need to redshirt. The other 2 scrimmages will be Saturday, August 20th, and Friday, August 26th will be our pregame, our last scrimmage, and the week before our first game, and those will be our 3 scrimmages that we'll have. Practices are typically slated for 4 to 6 in these 5 days, just as there will be an awful lot of installation going these first 5 days, that we have an opportunity to meet, teach, walk through, and then get on the field and actually do it. So we're going to try and practice at 4 to 6. Unfortunately, with excessive heat warnings and thunderstorms, which have been rather readily available the last week or two around here, and goes along with summers in Louisiana, we're just going to have to keep our knees bent and stay flexible with what's going to happen with all that. But we may have to move some practices around. We may even try and move some up. We may have to move some back just to dance around some of the weather issues, because we want to make sure we don't put anybody in harm's way as far as our practice schedule is concerned. When the indoor practice facility is built rather soon, then that will make things much more easier. So until then, we'll dance around the lightning. We had an incident last Thursday with Ryan Higgins. It's been very well documented. We were very fortunate in the situation that nobody was injured. I have met with Ryan and his parents. I know he's incredibly remorseful. He's apologetic. He understands the responsibilities he has, the seriousness of what he did, and that he's let an awful lot of people down. Here at an educational institution dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds, we have a tremendous opportunity to teach a group of young men a very valuable lesson, have an opportunity to teach them a very serious lesson, and hopefully can eliminate some life-changing lessons that we have the opportunity to teach these young men through the experience that Ryan went through this week. There will be a number of things in his discipline that he's going to need to do. Obviously, counseling will be part of this. Drinking and driving education, community service hours will all be part of his punishment. He'll have the opportunity to share his experience and what he's learned and the feelings that he's gone through over the last 48 hours with this football team, so we can educate everybody in the room and not just one man. And as we get into this, he will not be our starting quarterback when we go to Arkansas. It is all part of the punishment. When he plays will be determined by how he handles the entire situation from top to bottom, with every one of the punishments that I listed previously. So that's how we'll handle this as a football team. We'll address it as a team. We'll talk about it as a team, and we are going to try and use this as a very valuable educational situation for our football players. But as I said, we were very fortunate and very blessed with the decision that he made that nobody was injured. And we just have to go now, and we have to learn, and we have to teach from this experience. This season presents great challenges for us. We say every football team is going to go through 3 crises that we're going to have to overcome. As I'm going to have the opportunity to tell this football team today, the good news is we only have 2 left. So the way I look at it, we've got 1 down, and we only have 2 left that we're going to have to handle from an adversity standpoint. But getting into this season poses some great challenges for this team. We've lost some great players. Gone is Kenneth Dixon, Jeff Driscoll, Vernon Butler, You go through, there's 7 players that are in the camp. Dora, Paul Turner, Darius Barnes. I mean, we've lost some great players, some players that have made an incredible contribution to this team, not just last year, but really you look at a lot of these guys were 3- and 4-year starters for us. Coming back, we will be one of the least experienced teams in the country. I believe we rank 123 out of 127 with experience coming back. We play Arkansas and Texas Tech both on the road early. We play 7 road games next year rather than the traditional 6 and 6. We have 11 straight games without an open date. And coming out of a short camp where many teams had the opportunity to report on Wednesday or Thursday of this last week, and us not being able to report to Sunday because of our class schedule, we're going to have a pretty grueling camp, and then we're going to have 11 straight weeks that we've got to go through. And our draw from the eastern side of the conference, will consist of Middle Tennessee and Western Kentucky, both who are picked 1 and 2 in the East Division. So we've got some challenges ahead. We've got a very difficult schedule. We've got some difficult things that we're going to have to handle, but in saying all the challenges that we're walking into with this, with the very little experience and trying to put a new team together and really having 3 weeks, 4 weeks to gel this team together, I will also say that I am probably don't know that I've ever gone into a season with this much excitement, energy, enthusiasm, and passion for what we have in front of us. We do have some talent on this football team, but we've got a long way to go before we can turn that talent into a very productive football team in what we're trying to do this fall. Like I said, we got some great challenges, but we also have some great opportunities ahead of us, and I'm really excited about the 2016 season. Are there any questions I can answer for anybody? Yes, sir.
You said that Ryan won't be starting week 1 against Arkansas, but will he be available to play and be with the team?
A lot of that will be dependent upon how he handles it.
What went into your decision? I know about 10 years ago at ECU you had a similar situation. How much did you use something like that? Is it completely different or?
Different from a standpoint that I have always had in-season and out-of-season rules and policies. In season, it's a game suspension. It's not even up for debate. I looked at a couple years ago at Ryan at East Carolina when I had that situation. It was a Saturday the week before our opening game. I think that made that decision really easy. It does not minimize what happened or the decision that Ryan made over the one that Rob Cass made 10 years ago, but it's how I've handled in-season and out-of-season discipline and policies. And tried to go into this decision was I want to be, I think we have a responsibility and an obligation, and I think Ryan's waited a long time for this opportunity, and I know this will hurt him. I think we've got to make the decision that we can use as a teaching moment for every young man that sits in this room.
So is he suspended per se, or?
No, he just will not start. He will not start in the opening game.
How will you handle reps quarterback-wise, like tomorrow? Will he be running with the first team, or?
There will not be a first team. First day of practice, we'll go out there and roll everybody. I mean, like I said, I'm certainly not suspending him or kicking him off the team. His punishment is he will not start at Arkansas. I am not, like I said, I'm not looking to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But at the same point in time, I think we have to be firm and stern with the decision that we make. So he will not start at Arkansas, and when he will be available to play is going to be predicated on how he handles everything to that point.
Who, as of now, who would be in the lead to?
No idea.
Bryce Wilson?
No idea. No idea. That'll be determined out on the field, and that hasn't started yet.
Could you talk about Adrian Hardy is one of your new additions today?
Yes.
What do you see he brings to the table for your team?
Size, speed, athleticism, all the measurable things that you talk about. Obviously, he is a phenomenal athlete. Was a quarterback in high school. I'm going to be excited to see where he is as a freshman and how ready he is to contribute early. He will be one of the better athletes on our football team as soon as we walk out on the field. It's just going to be how ready is he to play. But I think he brings some explosiveness, some size, and some athleticism to a very talented position for us right now, but he brings it to us as a true freshman coming into this class. I think it's a phenomenal addition, and I'm anxious to get on the field with him and get on the grass.
How long has the process been trying to get him from Oklahoma, and have you had to fight some folks off?
Well, we've had to fight some folks off for sure. It's been a lengthy process. I know Joe Sloan's been much more involved with it than I have. It's been lengthier for him than it has been for me. But just going through everything and, the decision that he made, and he took other visits, and then the decision he made to come here and be part of it, and then go through it was definitely an 11th hour edition, which I was excited that he was as excited to be here as we are to have him.
What was your message to the team after the incident Friday?
I have not met with the team.
What will be your message?
I will meet with them tonight. We can talk about that tomorrow after I meet with them.
The fact that Arkansas is a non-conference matchup, does that lessen the impact at all, or is it?
Never in this decision did winning, losing, opponent, any of that go into play. It was, what's the best way that we can be fair to everybody involved and make an impactful learning lesson for everybody. But it was never, if we played a conference team, my decision would not be different. If we played a 1AA team, my decision would not be different. This decision didn't have anything to do with our opening opponent.
With the running backs, I know you talked about losing Kenneth. How much do you think will be a committee, or do you think anyone will eventually take over Haley Road? Do you foresee that happening at all?
There's a possibility. I think there's three very talented tailbacks there. When you look at Boston Scott, Jared Kraft, and Jaquise Dancy, I think any one of them is probably capable of taking the reins and running with it. That will, again, I'll be determined. Right now, I would tell you, coming out of spring practice, it would be a committee. But that's what the next couple weeks on the field are going to be all about, to see who's ready to carry that load. But they all three have strengths. They're all three very talented players, and it's nice to know you have that type of depth at a position, because they've all played. They've all been in a game, and they've all played. Obviously, some more than others, but they've all played. And Jared Kraft getting injured last year with his hand and his knee, and Boston Scott getting the opportunity to show what he can do. I think it's just a matter of who's going to get their opportunity and make the most of it.
Do you think Jaquise has arguably the most to gain from them, since he wasn't able to play in the spring game?
Yeah, I think he's got the most. I think Jaquise is probably the most explosive of the three running backs. I think he's the most explosive and probably has the most, big play potential, but he's got to learn to play every down. He's got to learn to be a pass protector, a guy that can play every down, protect the football, not always looking for the home run ball, trying to outrun everybody to the sideline, but going north and south and understanding when is it time to make an open field move and when's it time to lower your shoulder. I think he's got the most to gain from a standpoint. He's got the most to learn of all three of them. But I think he's definitely got a pretty high ceiling.
You mentioned 100% retention from the spring.
Yes.
When you guys hit the field tomorrow, how much easier does that make it to cut out the learning process?
Huge. When you look at, especially when you look at having Blake Baker back and having the consistency of, we've now had the same defense and the same calls on our defense for 3 years in a row. We'll always add wrinkles offensively and defensively, but the staples, the base are all the same. And so for the players, we're going to be able to go out there to practice day one, and really with the guys that were here in spring, you could probably run about 70% of your playbook. You could probably go out there and call 70% of your playbook on either side of the ball, and they're going to know what's going on. They know the drills. We've got a lot of similar staffing. Offense is the same terminology. Defense is the same terminology. Your kickers are back. There's going to be a lot of familiarity, so it's not like we're starting from scratch, although we're going to have a lot of new faces. But we do have a lot of guys as well that have, when you talk about the Trent Taylors and the Xavier Woods and even some of the guys that are stepping up, maybe it's a guy like Cedric Cooper, who's been in the program for 3 years now, going into his third year. They're not freshmen, but the learning curve will be, like I said, there's going to be probably 5 to 7 players in this freshman class that are going to be able to contribute. Now, obviously, there's a little bit more learning for Dalton Santos, for Jordan Harris, for Prince Sam, for some of the, whether it be a junior college or a transfer that came in, there'll be a little bit more learning curve with them. But for the team, it won't be, it's very nice to have that type of stability coming back.
How close are you to 85, and how does that feel now? Because I remember 3-4 years ago, you were at probably in the high 70s.
Yeah, no, we've gone from 77, I believe, was year one. I think we went from 77 to 80 or 81. year 2, and this year we should be at 85. This year we've made that transition just because the first year having 33 gone and only having 25 initials to bring 25 new guys in, we were under by 8, I believe it was, year 1.
Another newcomer, Dwight Stallworth, a monster offensive line,
Monster.
6'8", 330 pounds. What do you expect from him this fall to contribute for guard or for tackle or for depth? How do you see?
Well, both Dwight Stallworth, who brings great numbers, and also Joshua Outlaw, who was not here in the spring but was here for summer school. Those are, Joshua Outlaw, I believe, was the 4th rated tackle in the country coming out of high school. I think both of those guys have great size, and they have the potential, really, either one of them to be a guard or a tackle. And what we tried to do is bring them in to really help bolster an offensive line. I believe Stallworth is a 3 for 3. He has 3 years. He has 3 years remaining, and Joshua Outlaw has 2. So rather than just bringing in senior transfers, it gives you guys that are going to not only come in and maybe help you this year, but when you're already losing, I believe it's 4 seniors off that line for next year, they were to help bolster this year's line, but they were also for the 2017, 2018 offensive line to help guys like O'Shea Dugas and a little guy like Ethan Reed, a redshirt freshman who I think has a chance, Shane Carpenter, some of these younger guys that are on the offensive line to help bolster those underclass. So a year from now, we're not trying to go get 5 starters, because you're going to lose those 5 seniors. I think it's with Brown, Mahaffey, Wixon, Brunson, and then Landry. Being the 5 with the other 4 playing it, who have played a major role for us, all walking out the door. Those guys are going to help create depth for us, and hopefully, one or both of them could start, because that means we're a better football team. But they'll definitely help add depth as well.
What's the plan with center and guard? I know that right guard, I know that Wixon and Brunson and Mahaffey all kind of rotated in the spring.
We wanted to help create some depth for ourselves. We weren't in the situation we were a year ago where we lost 2 centers in camp, and all of a sudden Mahaffey moves there the week of the first game. So we're trying to really, with the experience with the nucleus we have coming back, we're trying to make sure our guards can play center and vice versa, where some guys can move around and everybody's kind of learning 2 positions. Like I got to learn guard and tackle, or I got to learn center and guard. So we have a little bit more flexibility when we have an injury during the course of the year to put our best 5 on the field. Going into it right now, I don't know. We'll probably still play with it a little bit, maybe for the first week, until we can really center in on who those first 5 are going to be. Whether that's Brunson or Mahaffey or Wixon at center, or maybe it's one of those 3 at guard. And a lot of that's going to be predicated on where is Outlaw and Stallworth? How does Ethan Reed come along at the 1 guard? Where is Shane Carpenter right now? A lot of that is going to go in, because some of these guys have made pretty significant gains in their body over the last 4 months while they've been with Kurt Hester. And I'd like to see what type of progress they've made and whether or not they're better football players when we get on the field. So right now it's kind of up in the air. I wouldn't even be able to tell you this how it's going to be by week 1.
Defensive line, of course, you lose a guy like Vernon Butler, who you don't replace.
No.
Lose another at an end. How do you?
Both of them in NFL camp. Both of them in NFL camps. No, they're hard to replace. You got a guy like Aaron Brown coming back. You've got Deldrick Canty, and you got Jalen Ferguson. That's a pretty good place to start with those 3. Both Canty and Ferguson played as guys that have been in your program for their 2nd year last year. One redshirted, one didn't, but they all have some game experience, even though they haven't been every down starters. You add to that mix maybe Eric Kinzer, a freshman, Willie Baker, a freshman, Kadarian Mason, a freshman, along with some of the other guys that we talked about inside, some of the guys that we have there. I think we'll definitely have some talent at the position. We may be a little bit raw, but because right now nobody's heard of those last 3 names I mentioned. But a year ago, nobody knew who Jalen Ferguson was too. And these guys are very talented. They just haven't played. And so it's going to be the challenge for Rick Petrie and for Blake Baker to make sure that we can make this not so complex that they can't learn the system, and that they can get on the field and use their talents and abilities. So I'm anxious to see how the defensive end position is really going to play out, because I do think there's some bodies there. I just don't know which one it's gonna be. It's kinda like what we're dealing with on the offensive line. We have more players in our two deep depth chart to mix with than we've had any year that we've been here. More guys that have been in the program that aren't walking into their first year. I just couldn't tell you right now where all the pieces of the puzzles are gonna fit, and that's what we've gotta do during camp, is put those pieces together.
And then you look at linebacker after the spring, was it just a necessity to go and find at least one transfer linebacker?
It was, I mean, it was definitely, we opened our ears to anybody that was transferring, and the transfer market's a little bit different. I mean, every day you may get a phone call that, hey, there's a corner, hey, there's a quarterback, there's a lineman. No, not interested, ooh, linebacker? Yeah, let's research that one. And being able to add a Dalton Santos and a Jordan Harris. I mean, we graduated all 3 linebackers for the last 2 years. We've graduated 6 linebackers in the last 2 years, and having 3 new linebackers this year, I feel pretty blessed to be able to add guys like Dalton, Jordan, and then mix that in with some of the players that are there. I think when I look at the younger players, I mean, they're just that. I think they're going to be good players. But Colin Scott redshirted. You know what? Last year, Jalen Ferguson played a great role. I mean, a great role as a backup. And I think if Colin Scott and Brandon Derman and Russell Ferris can continue their growth and development, I'd like to get it to where we can play more than just 3 linebackers. But I think those guys are going to be really good in the future. We just needed some time to help them mature and develop a little bit more as linebackers that are ready to start, to go out and be starting linebackers. When I look at those 2 guys, they both played in the Big 12. They've both played football. They've made a lot of tackles. They're very talented. It's just going to be a matter of getting them involved in our defense and learning what they do, and then putting them with the team as in a leadership role.
Are there any notable position changes?
No. I mean, like, guard, center, some things like that. Some of that will go on, but nobody's moving sides of the ball at this point.
Any linebackers or safeties moving or notable, like in the spring? I know you toyed around with some guys playing some different positions.
Yeah, no, not right now. I mean, whether we, like, maybe a Cedric Cooper goes and plays an outside linebacker in our nickel package, but we're not moving a safety to linebacker or a linebacker to end or something like that with where we are right now.
Is James Jackson back at safety?
Yes, we've taken with what we do, it's kind of whether it's a nickel or regular, that position is either a safety or a linebacker. So they've what we did with Blake moving back to the safeties, we took that outside linebacker and we more or less made him a safety / outside linebacker. With today's college football, most people's base package is nickel. They're playing 2 linebackers and 3 safeties. And whether we get into that, and that's where all of a sudden we moved a safety down. We did that with number 11, Grogan Lloyd. We moved him down to safety, or from safety to outside linebacker, which is really your nickel safety. But I mean, we'll continue to do some of that. So James, a guy like Reggie Cleveland is a freshman that comes in here with some great numbers statistically that I'm anxious to see play. He's a guy maybe that could be a safety or that nickel, that nickel outside linebacker safety, the same as a James Jackson.
And then you look at the defensive backs, you've added Prince Sam, you
Yes.
see him as strictly a corner, and then Demarion King will stay at safety.
At safety with where we are right now. If you look at their body sizes, you think maybe they ought to be flipped. I mean, but because of when you look at Prince Sam's size as a corner, but going into it right now, we plan on putting Prince Sam at corner and Demarion King at safety. And then you've got guys like we just talked about, Reggie Cleveland coming in. Zach Hannibal, I'm really excited to see where he is, and then to see some of the growth that maybe some of the Trey and some of the young guys have made over the summer since spring practice, and where they are and how ready they are to play.
As far as Prince Sam goes, was he just like your linebacker transfers? You needed some veteran.
We lost both corners, both senior corners, walked out the door, and you look at it coming out of spring ball. You got Ephraim Kitchen, who has not really played in a college football game yet, and so you'd definitely like to have some upper class experience that you could put in there, and that's what Prince Sam brings to the table.
You previously mentioned guys true
Yes.
freshman we saw last year with O'Shea, was able to come in and make a splash. Any other guys besides the ones that you've named the last couple weeks or month that you could foresee playing as true freshmen making an impact?
I think, just going through our roster, I think the 3 down linemen definitely have a chance in Kadarian Willie and Zach Kinzer. I think Reggie Cleveland could have a chance. I think Zach Hannibal could have a chance at that corner from what little I've seen, to this point. Could have a chance. I think on the offensive side of the ball, there's going to be a heck of a battle going on. I'm anxious to see what Adrian Hardy can do, to see him coming in with Marlon Watts having this surgery, in the role that Marlon's played from a depth standpoint. We'll have to evaluate that and see where that is. But the offensive line, I'd like to be able to redshirt. I think with the depth and with the newcomers that we have at that position, we'll probably be able to redshirt all of our freshman offensive linemen. We redshirted Ethan Reed last year. I think he'll be a guy in the 2 deep this year. I think there's maybe a couple redshirt freshmen, but I think as freshmen, there's probably 5 to 7 that are going to have a chance.
Saw that one of the rosters from like media day, David Beasley was not on there. What's his status with the program?
He will not be reporting. He will not be reporting to camp. He will not be here this fall.
Will he be here at any point in the future?
I can't answer that. Don't know. Right now, he will not be reporting here.
Anything else?
Anybody from signing day that didn't make it?
Kalen Ritchie from signing date will not report. Kalen Ritchie and David Beasley, I think, are the 2 signees that will not be here.
What was the reason for Richie not reporting?
Can't talk about it.